Hi everyone, Sabrina from Scrappy Tales Crafts here, and today I'll be showing you my first February design team project for Trinity stamps. So for today's video, I decided to showcase this adorable house mouse stamp set. You can see that I went ahead and stamped out each image 3 times onto some Bristol cardstock. I did stamp them out with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I did go over the images with some clear embossing powder. And that is because I'm working with my Zig Clean Color Real Brush markers today. And I like that the clear embossing powder creates a well for my watercolor to stay inside of. So whenever I clear heat emboss, I normally don't get any bleeding. So that's why I always tend to do that when I'm working with any kind of watercolor. So here I'm showing you how I color in a few mice here. I always start out with my darkest color and I map out my shadow areas, and then I'll take a pretty light marker. On Bristol paper, the watercolors really move well, so you can take a really dark marker and a light marker and have them blend together really nicely. So after I go over that with my mid-tone, I make sure that I leave a little bit of white space. Normally, I would go over that area with my lightest marker when I'm working with Copics, but when I work with watercolor, I instead use my water brush, and then I just move the pigment with my water brush, and it creates a natural highlight that way since the water kind of dilutes the color. So here is a good example of how I color this image in. I lay down my darkest areas with my darkest marker, and now I'm going over those dark areas with a lighter marker. And you can see it's quite a bit lighter than my darkest color, and like I said, on Bristol you can really blend 2 very different colors together. And then I go over all those white areas with my water brush, and that creates my highlight color. So I typically only use 2 colors when I'm coloring with my watercolors. You can see my watercolor brush that I'm using on the top left corner, and that is a Wink of Stella brush, and I've had this brush for probably 3 years now. So what I do to keep reusing it is I fill it up with water, and then I add gold perfect pearls to it, and I'm telling you guys, it looks almost exactly like the original Wink of Stella pen. I want to do a video comparing the two, or I might just do like a hack video if I can come up with some more hacks. Because I really love that tip, and I haven't bought a Wink of Stella pen in 3 years. So if you want to give that a try, there's a tip for you. So for the leaves, I'm only going to use 1 marker and my watercolor brush since the areas are so tiny. Alright, so I'm still coloring, so I guess I can include some life updates. I did move to Melbourne, which is really close to Vero, so I didn't move very far, but I'm in the process of moving everything, and I think we just kind of settled down and we're ready to live our lives. All the furniture's in. I am going to keep crafting at my parents' house just because my craft room is there. I do have a little small room at my apartment, so if need be, I can do some things here. But it's really exciting to have my own place with my husband. He lived in North Dakota for almost 2 years, and we were able to transfer him to Florida, so that was amazing. He's super happy not to be in negative 30-degree weather. Please let me know if you guys live anywhere near North Dakota, because I don't know how it's habitable, honestly. But he actually kind of liked living there, but obviously he's very happy to be back in sunny, warm Florida. I also got a Siamese kitten, which I've had cats my whole life, and this cat is something else. He screams, for one. It's not a meow, it's a scream. And he fell in the toilet, and he almost drowned himself in the bathtub. Luckily, both times in the same bathroom, by the way. Like, he keeps going into that bathroom. He hasn't learned his lesson. But luckily we were there and we were able to save him. But yeah, he's a hoot. He's basically a dog. He fetches. We're trying to train him how to fetch. And he's very smart already. So let me know if you guys have a Siamese. Here you can see I went ahead and die cut all of the images out with their coordinating dies. And I also did some more die cutting. I first die cut this banner from this Trinity stamp scalloped stitched rectangle that you can use with their slimline series. There's 3 banners that come in that set, and then also the scalloped rectangles, which you can see I die cut 3 of those, 2 from white cardstock and 1 from a lime green cardstock. And I did die cut 2 banners, 1 white and 1 black. At the time I wasn't sure which one I wanted to use, so I just die cut both. And then the only extra supply I really used here is this mushroom die, which is by Lawn Fawn. So here you can see I'm just assembling the mushrooms. The heads of the mushrooms come separate from the stems of the mushrooms. So I die cut the heads from red and then the stems in a craft cardstock. And you can see I just glued on the head of the mushrooms with my art glitter glue. And now we can start card 1. So I'm taking my Trinity Stamps blending brush here, and I love these because the bristles are white, so you can see the color that you're using. I'm going to blend some Memento Sky Blue ink towards the top of this white scalloped rectangle. And in the die set, there are 2 of these scalloped rectangles, and I am using the larger one here. Okay, and then below that, I'm going to add Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink. And then I'll go back over the area with my sky blue ink to help it blend a little bit more. I only have 12 Distress Oxide inks, so I oftentimes combine Distress inks and Oxide inks, and then even inks from other companies. And then for this green panel, I'm going to add some Lucky Clover ink, and I'm very messy with this one because I will be die cutting grass from it, so I wasn't too worried about getting a perfect blend. And I chose to use green cardstock here, so that way I only had to use 1 Distress Oxide ink instead of 2, since the color of the cardstock is kind of my second color. So I'm just trying to make it blend into the paper a little bit more. I'm not being too perfect about it. And I did blend on 2 areas of that green panel, and I'll die cut the grass from both of those areas. I added some water splatters with my water bottle, and then I'm just blotting up the splatters with a paper towel here. If you use Bristol cardstock for your ink blending, these water splatters would show up a little bit better. But I like that they were kind of subtle. Alright, so here I'm taking this grass die. This came in the same mushroom die set from Lawn Fawn, so it came with this grass. So I die cut 2 of those from the green panel. Here I'm kind of trying to figure out how high I want to cut this grass. So I will have 2 layers of grass. I'm going to pop up the one in the front. And here you can see there's still some light green showing at the bottom of that second row. So later on I will add some more Lucky Clover Distress Oxide ink to the bottom of that. But first I'm going to go ahead and attach this grass. I'm using ATG tape for the grass, the longer piece, and then for the grass in the front I will use some foam tape. Here is where I'm going to just add some more Lucky Clover ink to hide that lime green paper. I'm making sure to wipe down my glass mat every so often, that way I don't transfer any ink onto some white areas, which is especially important when you bring in your card base. So I'm just getting in the habit of cleaning my glass mat every time I use my oxide inks. Here you can see I added some mushrooms behind this grass. And then I'm going to now pop this grass piece up with some foam tape. I'm using some Uline foam tape It's very cheap tape, but the backing is hard to take off. But I would still recommend it because it's a really great price. Okay, and then I want to use the last 3 mushrooms from this strip here, and I'll just attach those to the bottom of the grass, just using my art glitter glue here. So as you can see, I've been loving making slimline cards lately, and I love all the slimline series from Trinity. So if you haven't picked them up yet, go ahead and check them out. They're really cool. She has multiple slimline series, and I will be using another one for card 2. I decided to add another row of mushrooms towards the top where the sky is, and then in the stamp set there were some more mushrooms. I'm going to add, I think, 3 of those to this panel. You can see I added my tree stump, and then I placed a mouse and a snail on top of it. They're kind of dancing together. I thought that was cute. And then I'm just going to tuck in a few things here and there. I added some flowers. I placed another snail on top of one of the mushrooms. And then I think I'm going to add one more little mouse there on the bottom right corner. And then I can work on my sentiment. I chose, so thankful for you, and then in parentheses it says, and cheese. I thought that was a really cute sentiment, and I had one of the mice holding some cheese so that it kind of matched the sentiment. And I did stamp that out with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I just stamped that over the sky area. I'm going to pop a few of these elements up with some foam tape. Some of them I'm just going to glue directly down with my art glitter glue. Just trying to get some dimension on this card. And that will pretty much complete the scene. I think it turned out super cute. I love how much stuff you can put on a slimline card. On a regular A2 card, I'm not sure if I would be able to use all these different elements. Well, maybe I could have if I did a landscape, but these are just so fun to make, and I love the different shape. Okay, so my panel is complete. I'm going to add ATG tape behind the scalloped rectangle, and then just adhere that onto my card base. And that will complete card number 1. Now, Tanisha sells these envelopes in the Trinity shop, and they're perfect for these slimline cards, and they're colorful, so I kind of chose a red one to match the mushrooms. And here's a close-up. For card 2, I'm going to create another slimline card. Like I said, I can't get enough of these. They're so fun to make. So I did the exact same thing with the ink blending. I did the Lucky Clover on some green cardstock, and then I used the Salty Ocean on a white panel. And I decided not to use the Memento Sky Blue ink on that one. I just used the Salty Ocean. And I die cut this window frame, which is another die from another slimline series, and I will have everything linked down below. And I just cut those windows out towards the top of the blue panel, and then for the scalloped green rectangle I'm going to die cut some more grass. And then I decided to add some acetate behind the windows. If you know me, you know that I love adding acetate to any type of window card, even if it's not a shaker card. Okay, so I like how that looks. You can see I didn't bother to blend the bottom of this panel because I knew my grass would be covering it. I'm going to go ahead and add some foam tape behind the grass and then pop that up over my blue panel. And then I'm going to add some more mushrooms. So this card is very similar to the first one. It's just a different layout. And I love that both cards coordinate so well together. I'm going to attach the mushrooms with my art glitter glue. And the hill of the mushroom matches perfectly with the hill of the grass, so it's easy to tuck in these mushrooms behind. So I'm just going to add a few more to that little hill on the left. And then I decided to add this large mushroom from the stamp set right in the center. And here you can see I'm going to add this mushroom, but I'm going to end up taking it off because that's where I'm going to put my sentiment. And then from that same green panel, I managed to cut out another hill of grass, so I'm going to add that behind the acetate. And I love this dimension that this gives. It's a really cool scene. All right, so now I'm going to take all my mice and my snails. I'm going to try to lay out how I want this scene to look. I'm going to use a few a few gray mice and then some brown. This is where I realized that I don't want that mushroom there, so I'm going to carefully peel it off. And I did get a little bit of tearing, but I'm going to have my mouse and my sentiment cover that, so it wasn't a huge deal. Okay, and I feel that this banner is just a little bit too long. Again, I cut this banner from the same scallop stitch rectangle die set, so I will end up trimming this down a little bit so it's a shorter banner. Here you can see I'm doing that now. And then I just stamped out the same sentiment, "So thankful for you," and cheese. I white heat embossed it. I'm going to pop up the center, and then for the little tails, I'm going to glue them directly onto the grass, and I'm making sure to glue them a little bit upwards. I thought that looked kind of cool. Here you can see I'm going to use this brown mouse to hide that tear. And you can see I'm adding some foam tape to some of these mice. I love dimension on my cards, so I will use a lot of foam tape. Whenever I'm working with teeny tiny images, I prefer to use my Scotch 3M foam tape. The U-line is just a little too sticky and a little fiddly because the backing is difficult to take off. All right, so I'm happy with how the scene is looking so far, and I'm ready to add my squares back inside the windows. So I'm using the squares that I die cut from the panel, and I'm lining them back up into their areas. And I added a little bit of glue to the bottom of them. That way I can attach them to the acetate and then onto my card base. And that helped to center them perfectly onto the card base so that I can pop up this window panel above it. Again, I think the dimension on this card is the reason I like it so much. So I did add some foam tape behind that, and then I placed it down. I am going to peel up the top because I do want to tuck in a few more images behind the windows. I'm going to have this gray mouse kind of coming in from the corner. For the center, I'm going to add another row of mushrooms. And then I will also add another mouse on the left window. I am gluing the mouse right next to the mushroom, but I end up moving that mouse onto the grass instead. I felt that it was just a little too cluttered in that area. I decided to add my snail on top of the middle mushroom. And I think that looks super cute. I'm going to add one more mushroom next to the sentiment. I'll add a flower to that right window. And that will pretty much complete the scene. I will add 3 of the lawn fawn mushrooms to the left corner. I felt that I needed something in that corner there. Here's where I decide to move that mouse onto the grass instead. And that grass is popped up, so I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape behind the mouse ears? I don't know the plural form. I know it's mice, but I'm talking about a single mouse. Okay, never mind. I'm going to pick out a colored envelope that I like, and I like this lime green one, so I'm going to use that. And that will pretty much complete the 2 cards that I created using the Mouse House stamp set. I think this stamp set is super adorable. I will have all of the links to the supplies that I use down below. The Slimline card series is always super popular and it frequently sells out on the Trinity website, so I would definitely check them out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!